In my last couple of podcast episodes, I highlighted stories of my own personal experience with forgiveness through talking about forgiving a stranger that yelled at me at the petting zoo. And I also talked about forgiving my brother and his lifelong struggle with drug addiction. And the truth is that these stories of forgiveness are rather easy for me to talk about because it was rather easy for me to forgive these people. And I want to talk about today the times in my life that it's been not as easy and actually painful to forgive and to learn how to forgive. And in these two examples that I'm going to talk about today, these two main examples in my life are surrounding the experience of learning how to forgive myself, especially after becoming a mother, and also learning how to forgive a narcissist that I was intertwined with in my life. So I'm going to talk about these two examples today. And I want to talk about it from the beginning, and I kind of just want to be fully honest. And these things are not easy for me to talk about. Um, but I'm hoping my desire, my intention is that in talking about this, I can release more of the pain that has been connected to it. I'm not looking for any advice in any way, shape, or form. I'm just looking to share my story and um, hope that it will speak to others in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to start at the beginning where the story starts before I was a mother and talk about a little bit about how I became involved with somebody that's a narcissist. Um, Before I met this person that is a narcissist, I didn't believe that I would ever have any experience with any person like this in my life. I thought that if I was a good person and a kind person and an open and honest person, then I wouldn't attract this sort of energy into my experience. And I also felt that I am not at risk at attracting any sort of narcissistic energy into my experience because I'm a really emotionally I can feel people's energy, and I know more about people before I talk to them than most people do. So I never thought that I would invite this into my experience, but I did, and I dealt with it for 8 years. So the way that this all started was that I started a relationship with a man that was already in a relationship with this woman. I started working at a new job, and after a couple months, I realized that I was in love with this man, and we started a relationship together. Now, this has been hard for me to talk about because I know that first of all, there's a huge amount of stigma associated with this. This is something that I could and would and was labeled a homewrecker for, and a horrible person for, and I went through a lot of pain from this experience. I no, I'm not going to justify what I did at all. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say what I did was wrong, and I didn't understand the extent of what I was getting myself into when I entered into this relationship with this man. I didn't understand what I was getting into. And I had good intentions. I can say that at that point in my life, I was an extremely naive person, extremely naive. I didn't understand of the darkness in the world. I knew it was there, but I was bypassing it completely. So I entered into this relationship with this man, and he left his partner to be with me, and they also had a 1-year-old child together. So for the rest of my relationship with this man, I also was in a relationship with his previous partner, who, after a while, after time, I learned was a narcissist. So this was an extremely, like, as you can tell, this is like a situation that's just like, how do I talk about this fully? Because I'm saying that what I did was wrong. The way I entered into this relationship was wrong. And also the way that this person treated me was wrong. And we were all wrong. Everything about it was wrong. And for the longest time, because this person was so hateful and so hurtful toward me, that I thought that I was justified in hating them too. And I hated them for a very long time. I don't feel like it's necessary to get into all of the experiences that I went through with this person, but I can sum it up, and I will say this, that I entered into this relationship with this man and I was the other woman, and he left this his relationship to be with me, and because of that, the woman that he was with and that was left spent the after the relationship, she spent the next 8 years doing everything that she could in her power to hurt me, to harm me, and to ruin my relationship with her child. I'm not going to say anything about the relationship of this woman and the child's father, because that's not my story to tell, but I'm just going to talk about my part of it. And I'm also, I want to say this as a matter of fact. I'm saying this in a very factual, blatant way, and I'm not trying to say that, like, look for anybody to validate that this, like, what this woman did was wrong or anything. Like, all I'm saying is that I know what she did was wrong. I know that the way she treated me was wrong, and it took me a really long time to get there. For a very long time I was gaslighting myself. For a very long time I was trying to tell myself she can't be that bad. It must be something that I'm doing that's creating this experience for myself, and it was something that I was doing. Of course, energy speaks louder than anything, and through my energy I was creating and allowing this situation into my life, and I was extremely angry. I wanted more than anything to have a loving relationship with this woman. I wanted more than anything to get along and to communicate and to work together and to be on this, my stepchild's team, and to all do whatever we could to make it work and to make the best out of it. And I tried to do this, and I wasn't able to do this because I was so angry at this woman. So I am going to talk about the next thing that I had to learn to forgive myself for. And the next thing that I had to learn to forgive myself for is this. In 2020, I was pregnant and with my second child, and I walked out of the bathroom that I was in, and my stepson, who was 4.5 at the time, was on top of my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, biting her, holding her, pinning her down on the ground and biting her. And I went into full mom rage, and I pulled my stepson off my daughter, and I had him by the arms and I was shaking him, and I said, "How could you do that? How could you do that?" And I was yelling at him, and I was upset, and I was hurt, and I realized afterward, after I was yelling at this child, after I calmed down, that I wasn't yelling at that child, I was yelling at his mother. I was yelling at the anger that I felt toward his mother because she had done things like that. Like, she had told him that he could bite my daughter. Um, so I realized that what I had done was wrong. And a couple days later, the mother texted me, and she sent me a picture, and she had shown me that I had left nail marks on this child's arm from when I was shaking him and yelling at him on the insides of his arms. And I immediately took full responsibility, immediately reached out to her, said, "I'm so sorry. So sorry that I did that. I totally lost it. I am not proud of what I did, and I'm sorry." couple days later, I went to her home, talked to her in person. I apologized for what I had done. I said, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I even told her, I was like, sometimes it feels like this is between us and the child's brought into it. We had a good conversation. We communicated. She said I could reach out to her and we could talk more over text in the future if there were things that I wanted to talk about. So I did. A couple days later, I reached out to her and I said, tried to have a conversation about something relating to her son, and she immediately was aggressive and reactive and angry, and it was like we had never had the conversation. So it went on like this every single time I would try over and over through text to make things right, to work with her, to do whatever I could to just end it, to end the war. And the war would never end. The war went on and on and on. And I was angry and I was bitter. And I also put up walls within my heart. I said, I can never get mad at this child like this again. And I put up walls within my heart, and I I didn't let myself love him because I was scared of getting too close to him because of his mother. I'm not saying that any of this is rational either. I'm saying this is how my body responded to it. Over time, it became, after I once I started to heal, it became obvious to me that I was experiencing, I don't know if I would be formally diagnosed with it, but I'd be interested if maybe I were, but I was experiencing a lot of symptoms of PTSD, and I would actually say complex PTSD because it was something that would occur every single weekend when this child would come to my home. I was living in a state of fear, a state of panic, and a state of um, not feeling safe because the child was trained to say certain things to me, to bring up certain things, talk about how I was a bad person and I had gone behind his mom's back and broken up their family. Like these are the things that the child was being taught, and there was nothing I could do about it. I even tried. I tried to sit down and have conversations with him, but it would backfire because he would go home and talk to his mom about what I had said, and then she would aggressively tell him that I was lying, and that so it just went on and on and on. It went on in pain. It went on in heartache, and it went on in anger and frustration for so long. I was so angry at this woman, and I was so angry at myself. I was angry at myself because I couldn't. Oh, there's so many levels to it, but I don't want this to be an extremely long podcast. But I want to say that it the my experience with this woman affected me in such a complex way that not only did it affect my relationship with my stepchild, it also affected my relationship with my children, because I began to get into a place in my life where I didn't feel safe at all. My body was in constant fight or flight. I was constantly feeling like I was being hunted. I was constantly feeling like I was scared. And I can't justify it in any way saying this is, other than saying this is how my body physically responded to the stimulus of living with this reoccurring pattern of attacks coming against me in my home through a child that was being conditioned by a parent. I felt so unsafe, and it started to affect me in all areas of my life. I was a extremely impatient, stressed out mother. I was constantly just in a state of I can't relax, I can't settle down, I can't do anything because I feel like I'm in danger. I wasn't able to be present with myself or with my children most of the time. And it was an incredibly painful time in my life, years and years and years and years and years of this. and at the same time, while I was going through all this pain, I was actively working on healing it. What can I do to get better? What can I do to be better? I don't want to be this person that lashes out at this child. I don't want to be a person that lashes out at my own children and isn't able to be present with them. And I was the mom that I wasn't able to be present. I was screaming all the time. I was in pain. I felt like it was just so tumultuous and so chaotic and so painful, my experience with this narcissist. I am not saying this to point fingers and say that this person like should be blamed. I am saying this to bring awareness to how our bodies can react to a certain person, to a certain energy, to other people's energy. This is, and I'm saying this as a person, I'm a strong person. I would never like I never thought I would deal with a narcissist because I would never get in a relationship with somebody like that. I have really strong boundaries with most things. Obviously they weren't as strong as I realized, and they're a lot stronger now, but I have strong boundaries, and like I'm not about to let this sort of energy into my life, this sort of manipulative energy, because I can sense that about people. But through letting in another energy, through falling in love with somebody and being starting to interact like with through them with the people that they're interact with, I took on another person's karma, and I also created my own karma, right, by starting out this relationship in this unfaithful way. I created my own karma. So what I want to say, going back to that, is that um when I started this relationship with that man in that way, and I started a physical relationship with him, I was 27 at the time. I would never do that again. I would never do that again. And why? Because first of all, I created pain, heartache, and just so much drama where there didn't need to be any, because I entered into this relationship in a way that even though I believe that people should be have freedom of expression within their own relationships, doesn't mean that it's okay for 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 me to do what I did. Like that's the bottom line. If I could go back in time, I mean, now all that's said and all that's done is done and said, and I can't change anything if I could go back. But if I could go back in time, I would not do that again. I would not do it in the same way that I did it, and I would not um, start a relationship with somebody by being unfaithful. Another thing I want to say is a lot of people have said, um, I just want to talk about a little bit about my relationship philosophy, because I know that there's an extreme amount of judgment for what I did towards me and towards the man I was with. And because like being the other woman, him being a cheater, like it's just like, oh my God, there's so much judgment about that. And I've been so uncomfortable talking about it. And I want to talk about it just a little bit so I can kind of talk about my own idea behind relationships. Okay. First of all, disclaimer is that I am not here to say that this is the right way to have relationships. I am not here to say that this is the only way to have relationships. I'm here to say that this is my way that I have relationships that works for me. So before I knew this man, before I met him, I was in a relationship with another man for 4 years. This man was very um on on the surface, he was very good to me. He treated me well, and he was very faithful to me, and it was like a very traditionally, culturally good, positive relationships that I had with this man. So I really struggled when I wanted to leave him. I really struggled because it felt like I was doing something wrong by leaving somebody that treated me well. But within leaving him, when I left that man, I learned something deeply. And what I learned was that no person should be stuck within a relationship. And that's what happens, especially to people that give a lot of their energy to others like me, where it's like I put myself into this relationship, said, since this man is good and faithful to me, then I will never leave him. and I put my own needs second. I put my own desires second, and I put what I wanted second because it felt like that's what I should do and that's what I was supposed to do. My whole life I've been looking for a relationship and someone to treat me well, so that's what I should accept. And when it came time to leave that relationship, I received some flack for it because people were saying, like, how dare you leave a good man? How dare you walk away from a good man? But the truth is that this view of relationships within our society is deeply flawed. And I cannot energetically align with a relationship like that. So when I met this man, we started our relationship under the understanding, under the knowing that neither of us wanted to be controlled by the other one in any way, shape, or form. We always wanted to be free to make our own choices, to do our own things, and to just be supported and loved by the other and not be controlled at all, because we were both coming out of controlling dynamics in different ways, different energies of control, but we were both coming out of that energy, that dynamic of control. So we entered into our relationship, into our partnership with the intention of we want to grow together, and we do not want to be confined. So people would say, well, he cheated on her, he's going to cheat on you too. It's just like, but that's not real within our relationship, because cheating doesn't exist. Because if he wants to be with somebody else, he is totally free to do so. If he wants to be with somebody else, then I want him to leave. Like, I don't want anybody to be with me just like out of obligation. If he wants to go and be with another woman, please go. And that could be worked out too within our relationship. Like, but I'm just saying that, like, my relationship philosophy is very open, so I don't see cheating in the same way. So again, but as I say this and try to bring it full circle, what I'm saying there is to highlight my relationship philosophy, but also to say that now I understand that I don't get to just make that decision and enter into a relationship with a man and just say, oh, it's okay because this is my relationship philosophy. And that's what I was doing at the time. And now I see how wrong that was. And I'm 35 now. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from this experience. And so to pull this all together and to really try to make it into a cohesive message around forgiveness, I had to learn how to forgive this woman. And I also, in tandem, was forced to learn to also forgive myself for the pain that I caused when I was so angry at this narcissist. So those two things started to go hand in hand. I would try to forgive myself, but I couldn't, and I would be pulled back into the anger at her. I tried to forgive her, but I couldn't, and I'd be pulled back into the anger at myself. And I was constantly in this position of push and pull. And it finally just occurred to me that I have to sit here and say, I'm not angry at myself anymore, and I'm not angry at her anymore. Why? Why am I not angry at her? Has she done anything? Is she no longer trying to hurt me? No, she's actively still trying to hurt me. She's actively still doing things to weaponize her child against me. And I have just come to a place of total acceptance with this. It's an acceptance of understanding that first of all, for a person to do that, for a person to act how anybody with narcissism acts, is means that they are a deeply sick person. They're sick. They're sick because the culture we live in is sick. They're sick because the system we live in is sick. They're sick because the family that they grew up in was sick. The people that raised them were sick. We cannot expect something healthy to come from such a sick system. And yeah, I I would love to say that this woman and I are working things out, and she's apologized to me and I've apologized to her, and we're moving together. But it's just like, no. And I don't know. I don't feel like that will ever happen. And I have to come from this place where I'm like willing to do whatever is right and no longer be in that place of anger and pain with her, where I'm sitting there in the shame of being a home wrecker, and I'm sitting there in the shame of hurting a child, and she's sitting there pointing fingers at me and saying I'm so horrible, and I'm believing it. And so really what this woman taught me, she has been my greatest lesson, and she has pushed me more than anything else to find truth within myself, that I am allowed to forgive myself for all of my flaws. And that means that the person out there that has hurt me more than anyone in this world, is allowed to forgive themselves too, and I forgive them. I forgive her for what she's done. I forgive her for the pain that she's caused in my life. And I'm trying every single day to, I don't want to say that, hold on, trying is limited. Every single day, I am becoming a better version of me, one that will continue to walk in the light of forgiveness. And although there are moments when I fall back into a pattern, in an energetic pattern within me of anger, the truth of my being is that I forgive her, is that in order to forgive myself, I have to forgive her. I want to forgive her. I don't want to be angry anymore. And being angry at her for so, excuse me, being angry at her for so many years was so painful for me. Like that anger did nothing for me. And I'm not sitting here saying that like I'm going to forgive her and like go out there and be her best friend. No, I have to have boundaries. I have to keep myself safe, but I'm also going to do that without being so angry over the things that this person has done to me. I'm also going to not be angry at myself anymore about for the ways that things that I have done to myself, for the ways that I haven't been the parent I want to be, for the ways that I've yelled at my kids in the past, for the ways that I hurt my stepson. I'm forgiving myself for all of it. I'm not holding on to any of it anymore. And I'm sitting here saying in the light of all of my darkness, like this is it. This is my darkness right here. Like I am a flawed human. I am not a perfect human. I have so much darkness. I have such deep experiences with anger and rage. And I can do a whole, I can talk so much more about the experience of just like being a mother itself and how um, painful it has been for me in another video, because that's like so much there. But this is me sitting in the light of my darkness and in the truth of my darkness and saying things that I could be, people could hate me for, I could be canceled for. But really the truth is that nobody can cancel me because I'm not ashamed of my past. I'm willing to say that yes, I have made so many mistakes. I've fucked up a lot, but I've always done it with the intention of I'm going to do better now. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to grow from this. I'm never going to do this to somebody again. I'm I'm constantly trying to become better, and that's why I allow myself to forgive myself, because shame doesn't allow us to grow. When we are sitting, and I know this from experience from sitting in my own shame, that's what narcissists often do, is they weaponize shame against another person. And in the awareness of that is the narcissists themselves are the ones that are deeply, deeply ashamed, but they mirror that, they push that onto the people they're attacking, and they point that shame at others. And I sat in that shame for so long. I sat in that shame of just being like, I just feel fucking terrible about myself. And for years, I did that. And it didn't get me anywhere. It didn't, I mean, I made slow, steady progress, but really the real progress has come when I've just said, I'm done with shame. I'm done feeling ashamed about who I am. I'm done feeling ashamed about what I did. It's not helping me grow as a parent. And what I want to do is grow as a parent. I want to grow as a mother, and I want to grow for my children's stepbrother, and I want to well, half brother. And I want to grow in every single way I possibly can. And if I'm just going to sit in my shame, and that's what our culture wants us to do, is they say shame, shame, shame. You should feel ashamed of yourself. You should feel bad about yourself. How dare you do that? But it's in reality, it's just like that shame isn't helping. Those fingers being pointed are not helping. They're not healing. What we want to do, we want to heal. We want to stop these cycles of shame and hate and the perpetuated just angst. We want to stop it, and we want to end it, and we end it within ourselves by releasing our shame first. So I'm going to sit here and just say that this is me, and that I invite others to hear my story and my experience and release the shame that they carry, release the shame that's within your heart and within your experience. And I'm also saying this because there's a lot of information out there about narcissists, and it was very helpful for me to learn about narcissists and to feel sort of like I'm not alone in this experience and other people are going through this too. But also, and there's a lot of very knowledgeable, skilled people out there talking about narcissists, but the one thing I haven't heard people talking about is forgiving the narcissist, because usually it's like a no, 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 that's a boundary, we do not forgive. But in this, so I can only speak from my own experience and saying I couldn't fully forgive the narcissist until I acknowledged and recognized all the pain that they had put me through and all the things that they had done, and really acknowledge all that, acknowledge my own role that I played in it, and then say, I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want to be in this pain anymore. And then start to let it go and to forgive. I couldn't forgive when I was just coming from a place of being angry about it. um but the reason that I'm talking about forgiveness with the narcissist too is just because there's so much information out there about that about them being hard to forgive. And I think that it's going to be in every single individual that experiences a narcissist is going to have to find this in their own way. But I think that the true path of releasing ourselves from the pain that others have put us through, is to really forgive them. And under just and it's not allowing, it's not saying that what they did is okay, it's not saying that like that any of it's okay, but it's just saying that we are now in a place where we're willing to look at this experience, look at the role that we played in it, and grow from it. And not holding on to, I'm hearing like that Buddhist quote, holding drinking hating another person is like drinking poison and wishing they would die. So, and that wishing they would hurt or something. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So this is my brutal honesty.